Welcome to Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back. Thank you for joining me in this episode. My name is Patrick and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show where I discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. And we're going to be going through an episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2003 series, and connected to teachings from the Bible. The name of the show comes from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So why the Ninja Turtles? The Ninja Turtles have always been one of my favorite fandoms since I was a kid. The original 80s cartoon was coming out when I was, I was growing up, and the arcade games were a big draw for me. I loved playing them. The live action movies that came out in the 90s, the first one, and then Secret of the Ooze part 2, and then Turtles in Time, which is the third movie. I enjoyed all three of them. Secret of the Ooze is my sentimental favorite, and so eventually it came to a point where I felt like I kind of outgrew the Ninja Turtles for some reason. And so when the 2003 series came out, I wasn't in the right place to really appreciate it for the good work that it is. And I would see an episode here or there and enjoyed what I saw, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, okay, you know what, I'm going to watch every episode. So I just missed out on it. And so I got a resurgence in my fandom of the Ninja Turtles with the IDW series. What ended up happening was that I got this wonderful opportunity to meet Kevin Eastman at Heroes Con. My brother had been reading the IDW series and was waiting in line to meet him to get him to sign some of his books. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't have anything for Kevin Eastman to sign. So I purchased a Ninja Turtle book for him to sign, and got to meet him and read some of the IDW series. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I just took it all in. And so I've been reading the IDW series ever since and have thoroughly enjoyed it. And that brought back my love of the Ninja Turtles. So I went back and watched the 2003 series. I watched the 2012 series. Go back to loving the 90s movies and even watching the Michael Bay movies, and just really getting back my love of the Ninja Turtles. And I also have kids, and so I've introduced the Ninja Turtles to my kids, and they enjoy it too. And so it's just been a great time to really be a Turtle fan, and just really enjoying it. So I wanted to go back and review the 2003 series because it's so well regarded by fans, and it's one of my favorite depictions of the Ninja Turtles. So we're going to be looking at the first episode, and the episode is called Things Change. One of the things that I really like about this show is that they do these kind of opening recap moments where it's going to be showing you kind of where the show is going to be going, what adventures the Ninja Turtles will be having, and one of the best parts about this very first episode is that it pays homage to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, because it's very similar. It's basically word for word opening dialogue of Ninja Turtles #1, where Leonardo is describing their confrontation with the Purple Dragons. And I really love that they recognize that the best source material is the comics, and so they really do that. And so then they go back to the beginning of the episode where everything happens and the Mousers come in and chase them out of their home, and that's the catalyst for everything that changes. And so we get to see the Ninja Turtles in action in their training with Master Splinter, and the action and combat is leaps and bounds better than the 87 show. Now, don't get me wrong, the 87 show is super fun, but when you're getting a little bit older in age, you're not wanting kind of like that slapstick goofiness of the 87 show, where the 2003 series starts depicting fighting in a little bit more realistic manner. Now, it's not completely realistic because, remember, it is a kid's show, And so one of the things I really loved about that is that they're showing this growth and how they're depicting the combat. Now, this is back in the early 2000s where the important thing in all forms of combat is making sure that you see spins and twirls and things like that. And so they do that. And so there's some reminiscence to like, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that He-Man show that didn't come out just recently, but came out around this time, where they spent a lot of time twirling their swords and stabs and things like that. It was a little ridiculous. The He-Man show was a little bit worse about it. But anywho, and so in this episode, we get introduced to Splinter and the four turtles, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Donatello, and how each one of them is different. And there are different styles of fighting and how they do things. And so each one of them gets their own kind of moment to shine in combat, especially against the Purple Dragons, but then later against the Foot Clan ninjas. And so they do this wonderful job of depicting them in fighting and who they are, and it's just really great. And the story moves well. They don't linger too long, but also giving every moment the chance to breathe as best it can. And there's also great comedic moments. A lot of it coming from Michelangelo, but some from the others as well. But the great moments, show their brotherhood. Like you believe that these four turtles are four brothers by the way that they act and respond to each other. So it's really great in that way. Another great moment throughout this show is the outdated early 2000 dressing style for people, where the way I view it is it's a combination of Jenko, Matrix, and cargo pants. Like I touched earlier on Jackie Chan Adventures and like X-Men Evolution and things like that, where there's a big combination where everyone's wearing some form of Jenko or cargo pants, cargo clothing, and Matrix style, all wrapped up into one. And so that's how the people are dressed that are, especially the Purple Dragons, but we'll see that later with other characters as well. The last thing I want to talk about with this episode that's really great is that we don't get a full revealing of the Shredder. We get kind of just a taste of it. We get to see a little bit more of the Foot Clan ninjas, and so that kind of gives us more of a tease of what is to come. And the Mousers being the initial antagonist and catalyst for change. And so one of the things that is really great about the 2003 series is that it is long form storytelling. From this episode, you go to the next one and it ties back in. The plots that are going on in these episodes go forward through the whole season, and there will even be tiebacks to the first season and season 2, season 3, season 4, and etc. Like, they don't forget their history. And so that's a really great thing, that this feels very similar to the comic book. And so it's really, really good, and it's just great. So let's get into the biblical theme. The biblical theme comes from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11. So for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So when I was trying to come up with a biblical theme for this episode, this is the verse that stood out to me, because as I said in the very beginning of the episode, we get to see Splinter training the four brothers. They're supposed to be sneaking up on him, stealing the candle from him, and snuffing it out without being noticed. And so each of the brothers comes through, Donatello and Michelangelo being defeated by Splinter very easily. He has a little bit more trouble with Raphael, and then eventually Leonardo comes in, takes the candle from him, and snuffs out the flame. But each time when he defeats one of the Ninja Turtles, he says, like, Donatello, you did this wrong. Michelangelo, you did this. And Raphael, you did this wrong. And then, and so throughout the time, he's teaching them and trying to help them grow as ninja. And so for us as Christians, it's supposed to be the same way, because the turtles, as they face the purple dragon, their training kicks in and they defeat them very easily because they're, just street fighters. But when they come across the ninja, they're like, oh, this is actually a little bit more difficult, and their training comes in. But they also realize that it's like, okay, we're a little outnumbered here, so we probably need to draw back a little bit. And but their training that they had under Splinter comes through, and they're able to fend off the Foot Clan ninja as long as possible to get away. And so the same thing goes for us as Christians, that why it's really important for us to have the spiritual disciplines. There's spiritual disciplines like praying, studying the Bible, being in fellowship with our fellow believers. Like, while all those are really important for us to do. Another one is journaling. That might be for some people, where they spend the time and journal their prayers and their feelings, so that they can give this stuff over to God. I've shared this before. I deal with stress-induced anxiety. And in my time of when my anxiety is ramped up, what ends up happening is that I can't go back to sleep. Like, I'll fall asleep, but the second anything wakes me up, I'm done. I like, my anxiety floods in and I can't go back to sleep. But thanks to therapy and spending time with my wife and her encouragement, but most importantly, are the disciplines. Spending time in reading the scriptures, spending time in prayer, and then retraining my mind on how I react to different anxiety-inducing things. It helps me. And so, because I've done that training, I'm no longer responding to my anxiety in the same way. And the same goes for any kind of moment when we're dealing with stressors. People passing away unexpectedly, dangerous circumstances where people have lost homes in fires and things like that. When we have those disciplines, when we face those dark times, instead of wallowing in self-pity, instead our training as Christian disciples kicks in and helps us through those moments, because not by anything we did, but because God is in us so much that it just, in those dark moments, God is present. We can show how God has been present in our lives and is present in those moments as well. So I want to encourage you that if you're listening to this in podcast or you're watching this on YouTube, that you take the time to really recognize why it's so important to be in daily prayer, daily reading the scriptures, and spending time in fellowship with your fellow believers as best you can. I want to encourage you that. I'm the pastor of Richlands Methodist Church in North Carolina. If you're in the area, I'd love for you to come by and join in our fellowship there. But if you're not in that area, I would encourage you to find a church to be a part of, that you can grow in. And so I just want to encourage you in that, to find people that can help you grow in those disciplines together. Take that challenge. Amen. So how am I going to rate this episode? So it's really good, but a lot of it is the initial setup to all of this, the premise. And so there might have been some things that you could have done, they might have done a little bit differently, but the animation is clean, the voice acting is clean, everything is really great. I think there's room for improvement, and we're going to see that in the coming episodes, where there's some really great stuff that happens. And so for me, this episode is a 4.5. Room for improvement, but not a whole lot, because it's really great the way it is. So I want to encourage you. This is a great show. Pick it up, watch it. It's going to be a good time for all Turtle fans. Can't recommend it enough. All right, so anyone with questions for me about the biblical lessons that I talked about in this episode, or any other discussion ranging from anime, comics, or just anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com or reach out to me on Twitter at frickityf or at frickityfrack on Instagram and Facebook. So please rate, review, and subscribe. All those fun things that everyone asks you to do. And if you feel so inclined, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond to them as best I can. Remember that I love you. Most importantly, God loves you, and cowabunga.